I'm an acquired taste. I get it. I'm kind of quirky. I care a lot. I'm very good at what I do, and I know that I know my shit. And so I can come across really strong to people because I have a strong personality, and I'm okay with that. If we don't fit, like, that's cool. I don't want to work with you either. And not in a negative way, just like find someone who's a better fit.
On this episode of Brews and BizDev, my illustrious guest is Diana Mitchell, the VP of Marketing at SSi People. Diana and I get to sit down, enjoy a couple gluten-free beers, and talk a little bit about LinkedIn and other kinds of content marketing. Authenticity. What's the value or lack of value in a platform like LinkedIn? And, as far as cheap reach and cheap contrived engagement goes, does more engagement actually lead to better results, business results, revenue in a platform like LinkedIn? We talk about those things and a lot more. Please check it out. Thanks for watching. And if you dig what we're putting out, remember to subscribe and share. Enjoy. Hey, Diana, how's it going?
I am doing well. How are you, Paul?
Pretty good. Ending the day, about to have a beer, so we're about to get better. Thanks for coming on. Why don't you just go ahead and introduce yourself to our viewers and listeners with your elevator pitch?
Yeah, sure. I'm the Vice President of Marketing at SSi People, an IT staffing and recruiting firm based out of Pittsburgh. So I've been doing this marketing thing for a while now, and I'm at a happy place in my career, and I love this stuff and I love the show, so I'm happy to be here.
Cool. Awesome. Well, happy to have you. And let's crack right into the most important aspect of the show, the beer. So tell us about what you chose to feature for today's episode and why.
It is in my husband's Cobra. He's a Mustang guy glass. Okay. It's a Redbridge gluten-free. So it sounds really unsexy, but I'll tell you what, it's so I'm also very uneducated. I know I define a beer by whether or not I like it. That's pretty much it. And so I used to be a Guinness girl, discovered the gluten sensitivity, and now I've been kind of exploring. I believe this is Anheuser-Busch, but it's actually pretty good.
All right. Well, let's give it a shot. It is Anheuser-Busch.
But so I know that people are listening, watching from afar. But I got this at Premier, which is one of our local liquor stores, and they have quite a few gluten-free beers. So I'm going to be digging into them quite a bit.
Yeah, I picked mine up from Consumers Beverage, and they did. They also had, it looked like 4 or 5 other beers, gluten-free is available. So, and some of them are in some, sometimes Premiers are in good locations for people. Sometimes the Consumers are, because there's just enough of them to be.
Yes.
Let's call it semi-convenience.
I'm equal distance. So now I know I'm going to be, and I'm vaccinated. So I'm going.
Yeah, me too. So here's to that. And I, without the Johnson & Johnson one, so no blood clots or melting brains or anything. That's plus. Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah, that's not bad.
No, especially with the weather getting nicer. It's nice and light and refreshing.
It is light. Sorghum. I don't know what the fuck that is.
It's a grain that I'm plant-based, so like people assume that I know all about grains, but sorghum, I bought a bag once and it expired. And those take like years to expire, but it's sat in my cupboard forever.
Yeah, fermented sorghum and corn syrup, hops and yeast. Well,
and there are also gluten-free beers where they magically remove the gluten, even though it's still brewed with wheat. If I'm understanding this correctly, if folks jump all over me, that's fine. Send messages to me on LinkedIn. But so that's intriguing as well. I don't have celiac, so that kind of beer should be okay for me. I'm just the sensitivity. So.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and it's nice to have the natural. Someone was saying earlier that there's some fairly well-known, and I'm totally forgetting it now. I want to say like MGD, and it's not MGD, but there's there's some beer that's fairly well-known that is gluten-free because it's actually a rice beer, and people don't realize it's a rice beer. Now, I'm not putting my name on that statement. I don't know which beer it was. I don't know if this person was full of shit or not. But yeah, there might be, it all depends on what it's brewed with, right? So it's easy to assume like it's all coming from the same stuff, but much like liquor, it's not. Alcohol content not more than 3.2. Well, that's disappointing.
Yeah, it's pretty wimpy. One of the other ones that I don't remember the name of, it was like one of those, and I'm a real lightweight, that was like 9%. And when you first drink it, you're like, this tastes like perfume. But then by a few sips, you're like, this is friggin' amazing.
Yeah, it's better as it goes, for sure. Yeah, I usually like the higher ABV stuff. Mostly because I don't want to drink 10 of anything, and I'm fairly large as a person, and so it takes something to get into it. But yeah, nice. Well, here's something new.
For the gluten-free folks, I've got you.
Yep, GFers. All right. So you already mentioned LinkedIn. So let's talk a little bit about LinkedIn. You know, we've both played around on there quite a bit. Less so recently for me. I disappear except for posting these things now and again, because sometimes it's boring. Sometimes I just got other shit to do, you know, like business. And but yes, we've both been on there for spans and tried different techniques, different levels of consistency. I assume different voices. I know you do content writing and stuff like that as well, right? So, you know, as a writer, right, there's certain kinds of posting as a writer versus just people who are just trying to post on social. And one of the things that we've talked about before, I think we've both talked about separately quite a bit, is this whole authenticity thing, right? Yeah. So beyond the deal of having to post on social and having to post on LinkedIn, you know, assuming you're in B2B or some kind of profession, because otherwise, like, I would not, unless the people you're selling to are on there, then that's where you should be. But, you know, there is a lot of marketers and salespeople kind of engaging each other on there. Yeah. But, you know, from a writer perspective, like, first of all, do you think authenticity is important? And maybe even before then, what does that mean to you? Because holy shit, is it a bandied about words. So for you, what's authenticity? Yeah. And then, is it actually important in social?
Yeah. And I'm super actually wishy-washy on the latter. My mind has been changing on that lately. And so when you first reached out to me to come on the show, and you're like, what do you want to talk about? And at the time, I was seeing a shit ton of posts on my feed, and I still do, about people complaining about a lack of authenticity. And I'll clarify that. We've all seen the long posts from people with like 100,000 followers, like, someone was coming to a job interview and their car broke down and they broke their leg and limped in 15 minutes late. And my former employer told them to go to hell. They'll never work for me. But I called him up and now he's my best employee. Like, I mean, that's extreme, but this is pretty much what they are. And it'll have like 50,000 likes and all these comments, people saying, bravo. And it's just, and so they used to, along with other like LinkedIn faux pas, they used to piss me off. Like, are you people daft? Like, how can you not see this is the most utter bullshit ever? And you know, these are people who know how to game the algorithms. And we could go into other things like the engagement pods and all these other like.
And we may, yes.
Yes, yeah. But these are pretty egregious, right? Because they're tapping into people's emotions to get engagement, and engagement begets engagement, and so on and so forth. And I used to get really pissed off. And there were times, and there still are, depending on my mood, where I'll come in and say, oh my gosh, what a great story. You should tag that employee so we can all congratulate him or her. Like, let's congratulate them right now. Yeah. And then, you know, they never respond, of course. And now I don't usually. And now, but now, so there's that. So there's that authenticity. And you could take that at face value at just truth and telling stories that are real. And I can say with 100% certainty that every single post I share a story, or all of it really happened to me. Like, if someone, a friend or a relative shares something, a terrible experience they had in a job interview, and I write that story, that's real. That really happened. But then, and those are extreme. There are others where it's less obvious. And I'm starting to come around to the fact that, like, okay, I don't want to say dumb, but if people feel motivated by that story and want to engage with it, do I care? Because I can keep scrolling. And is it worth me getting pissed off about? Because I used to feel like one of those like LinkedIn keyboard warriors. And if people, like I said, with the faux pas, and I would say, like, I wouldn't call anyone out, but I would say, like, you know, this just happened and it felt really icky and you probably shouldn't do that. And I've tried to step away from that because like, who the hell am I? Right. And if that works for them and if it doesn't tick you off, like, okay. And that's just like a Zen thing I'm trying to do in life. Like, who the hell cares? Just keep scrolling. Right. Just like if somebody pisses you off on Facebook, which I'm not on anymore because, elections and such. But like, who cares? Is it really bothering you? And so there's that. But now, and I'm sorry, I'm just going to keep going, but then this is the second part of this.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. Now you've got the complete opposite end of it of people seeing them getting those stories, getting the engagement. And they're like, well, shit, people are pissed off about these fake posts. So now my post is going to be complaining about the fake post. Am I right? Or a poll that's just the most ridiculous, obvious thing in the world. Somebody posted about that the other day in jest, and I thought it was hysterical. And again, it's that low-hanging engagement fruit, get eyes on your business. And like those I'm finding are actually irking me more than the initial posts because like it's so obvious that you're just trying to get people fired up. Like, yeah, these piss me off. Or boy, how many posts can we see complaining about some poor salesperson who's trying to freaking get by in a pandemic sending a message? Like, yes, nobody likes them. Yes, stop. That I'll say stop to. But so it's become this like one-upmanship of how can I prey on people's emotions the best. And that comes back to authenticity and being real. And does it matter? And so I'll say it matters to me less, but that's up to the individual.
Yeah. Okay, cool. And let's point to some levels in there because you're talking about these hyped up, clearly bullshit stories about often with recruiters, right? I mean, marketers are doing it plenty now, but I feel like it started in recruiters and these high level, some of whom don't exist. Right, there's the famous one, Oleg, who's not a real fucking person anyway.
There's another one I have doubts on too. It's a woman, and I see her a lot.
Yes, there are a few folks who are clear, and I know some people who managed to write up and create some characters that were not real and got. So I had Dan Kelsall on here, and he had done that. He had ghost written a character at one point. It's kind of how he got into what he ended up doing. That got a lot of attention, and people were like, "Oh," and then they could expose, but this is bullshit. And I've seen some people do posts like this, but if you run searches on LinkedIn, if you pull a sentence on one of those stories and then run a search on it, what you find is 100 people, all with the exact same fucking story. So there's inauthenticity, like you're just saying bullshit to try to which is not new to LinkedIn. That's called marketing forever, right? Like low level fucking triggering marketing. But but then there's not only did someone do that once, but then 100 people literally just fucking paste it on.
That's atrocious.
Yeah, which is incredible. So those searches are a lot of fun. And luckily, I usually don't find people I actually know or I'm connected to on those searches. It's still like those large numbers, recruiters, whoever's real and whoever's just a total figment created persona. But so there's that. And then there's, whether people react to it badly and then being inauthentic about people being inauthentic in that circle, because it is an attention game, right? So here's a question, because ultimately marketing still has to lead back to sales to be fucking relevant whatsoever. So, I wonder if do we have a good bead on what that actually leads to? And recruiting is one kind of game, right? So marketing, assuming there's a business there and there's something getting sold, it's like undifferentiated eyeballs, even if you attract them. Is that what you want to be attracting? I mean, depending on your business. So besides for our personal flavor, do you think authenticity is worthwhile for the kind of marketing on social that actually turns into business at some point?
No, that's a great question. And that's just it. So, I was consulting for almost a decade before I returned to full-time employment. And I used to preach to people it does not matter how many likes you have on any platform. But if you have 10 people who like your post, who maybe they're in your funnel and you're staying top of mind with them and they found value, and that makes it, or that warms your lead so that when you pick up the phone, they're like, oh, I saw your LinkedIn post. And this has happened to me many times when I was consulting, people saw my post, called me up. Do you do X? Yes, I do. And I would get business. I mean, it does happen. And so like that, this crap that we're talking about, it does, there's no way it does. I would argue it's more to puff egos, to get onto panels and things like that, and to just blow smoke up your own ass, more than anything. I mean, and there are guys, there's this one guy, I don't want to say his name, but and he runs an agency, and he's like the biggest bullshitter of all. I actually like unconnected him, because I was just like, enough of your crap. But and so I mean, maybe he's getting leads, and it also, I would caution too, maybe you're the kind of person who wants like the transactional client relationship.
Right. Yep.
And maybe you get those one-off transactions from that. And if that's the case, and if you're not lying or deliberately deceiving, or, I mean, your ethics are your ethics, but if you're not like misappropriating a story, or, whatever the case may be, then okay, fine, if that's what you want. But for the people I used to work with, and for myself when I was consulting, I'm a relationship person, and most B2B is going to be this way. So, I mean, create content that matters to people, and it's going to work. And if you get the 10 likes and one of those turns into a customer or client, well, I mean, isn't that worth it? Plus, I've gotten plenty of clients over the years on LinkedIn, but I made a lot of great friends, like online people who, when I go to a city, I'm going to grab coffee with that person. Yeah. There was someone who I was connected to for like 3 or 4 years, and I'm honored that he considered me in his inner circle, and he passed away very suddenly. And another friend sent a message. I cried. Like, this is someone I knew, even though I never met him. Yeah. And that to me is a value in this platform, because I've got referrals that way. I've gotten value reading their books or listening to their podcasts. And so, I mean, that's a mindset shift, and you can't force that on anyone. Yeah. But for me, if you view the platform that way, and you focus on building relationships and providing value, it sounds very Pollyanna, but I'm very Pollyanna. It truly does. That's what impacts your business in the long haul. If you're looking for the short gains, okay, fine. If you're looking for the sexy smoke up your ass by saying I had 50,000 likes on this viral post, go for it. But that's not what's going to like push the needle long term, in my opinion.
Right. Yes. And I'd say the numbers back that up in general. And I think that's, let me see, there's one, who was it? Well, in my experience, I'll just stick with my own, that there's often almost an inverse relationship. And I certainly don't have the evidence to back that up as a statement, but it feels like where the stuff that gets the most traction, gets traction, and it's cool. I mean, there is some value in additional people seeing your stuff on the chance that there's some kind of resonance, and then there's a connection, and then it goes, right? So that's, of course, more engagement equals more reach. And for me, outside of the engagement pod bullshit, if that's actually accomplished through your stuff reaching people, and because it's good, then great, you're probably going to get some more connections. But I've noticed that the stuff that gets the most of that, and the stuff that drives some kind of an actual conversation, like where someone reaches out, where someone calls and says something, where someone sends an email and says, oh yeah, I saw this, like, are not the same things.
Yes,
they are almost exclusively not the same things, because some of the shit that gets the most engagement, and I'm thinking of someone in particular, which I won't call out. He was supposed to actually come on here once, and then we had to reset, and then it never got reset. And I never reached out after a certain point, because it's an example. He does the kind of posting that for me is an example of like, are you fucking, like, no value add? Like, it's 101 level stuff. It's I just took a picture of a thing I put on Twitter, my own Twitter fucking post, into this thing. The Twitter thing is not very complex either, but then the post around it is even less. It's like a simpler version of the statement with the dreaded thoughts. And like, it's like, that's my thoughts on it, is like, but of course, that gets like, people can scroll in the world of what social is, right? Very quick, easy to fucking not think about anything. Like, oh, that's true. Like, oh, that's true.
Yes.
Like, yeah. Like it's true. Like, hey, marketing is all about your customer thoughts.
I know.
Fucking shit it is.
I didn't put a poll on it. That's
I didn't need to see your fucking Twitter post where you said the same thing and something else. Like, so whoever else is engaging is like a very simple kind of stupid level of engagements. And from other folks who are maybe, like they're brand new in the field or something, or that sounds ingenious. And a few like, oh, that's a good reminder. But like, for me, it always like I'm drawn to slightly more complex things, right? And not to sound like because, but like that shit sounds stupid. And like, all right, do you have 7 more lines? I don't care if they're double spaced. I use that technique.
I like it for my
I'm
own.
a writer. It feels like poetry. You know, I guess it's broetry. I'm a fucking white dude after all. So it's like, you know, but like I like the framework. I like visual.
There we go.
See, I get all handsy and I start turning shit. But it's like fill out something, like add something, like there's got to be some kind of value add for the other piece. Like the thing that's going to have someone call. No one's going to call, no business owners calling and being like, you know what? I had never thought about marketing being about the customer before. Like, let's talk. Can I pay you $5,000 for a fucking new marketing strategy? Like it ain't happening.
And like, it's not to say that everything, I am of the belief, and I know that I actually saw somebody who I really like on LinkedIn, actually, his name's Jerry, and he posts a lot of GIFs, and I'm a GIFer, okay? And love me or hate me, whatever. And if it's got Michael Scott in it, it's probably at the top, right? And he did a poll and like 40% of people hated GIFs. And I'm like, well, that, too bad. But to me, it doesn't all have to be professional. I had a post that had like 20 or 30,000 views. I had gotten off a call with another vendor for a client, and we were working on stuff, and he was in Canada. And I'm like, well, if I'm ever in Western Canada, we'll go to Tim Hortons. It's on me. And he goes, real Canadians don't drink Tim Hortons. And I was like, oh, like, I was like, oh, like Elaine Bennett's like, oh, I'm sorry. Like, I thought I offended him. So I was genuinely curious. It was not, I was like, hey, Canadian folks in my network, is this accurate? Because I really, truly wanted to know. And most of the people are like, hell no, I have my double every morning. And I'm like, see, we say double too in Buffalo. And some people were like, I don't, but most people do. But anyway, I thought it was really fun. And it was like a community builder. But like, there are some people who maybe looked at that and thought that I was one of the like fakers. But for me, it was genuine curiosity. And I feel like there's room for that.
Of course.
But it's like, you also have to add value. And I know I don't have a ton of time left, but like the engagement pod thing is a really good subject because that's something else I've like turned around on. Yeah. And I did like a little video series on it on LinkedIn when I was talking about ebb and flow. I've been like down, but right before I went down, and I used to be in a pod, but it was people who I got invited to the pod because I was always engaging on their content because I liked it.
Right.
And so they're like, hey, we're in this pod. And so when I stopped finding value and felt compelled to like content that I thought was shit, is when I left. And one of the people I met, and I don't want to say his name, he's a good guy, but I don't want to say because he spoke kind of negatively. He's like, I'm like, what happened to you? I don't see you anymore. And he's like, I left the pod. I just didn't feel right about it anymore. And he was creating great stuff. And so I just, I think there's a shift there, and it has become much more transactional. Again, I felt like I built relationships with those people and I was okay with it. Right. But I could understand why other people, and I genuinely just wanted I wanted their stuff to stay top of mind so that I would see it.
Of course.
And that, again, that's a Pollyanna view, but whatever. I'm 40 and I'm still a Pollyanna. I get that most people don't use it that way. And so I've changed my mind completely, especially again, once I started to feel icky, I'm like, no, I don't care if I have fewer likes on my stuff. And I think we had a conversation with this in the comments once, the same people start seeing your stuff. And like, you can see these a mile away, that great post. Like those are the shitty ones who are contributing to the conversation. And like, I don't want that stuff on my content.
No, it doesn't. It's not a good look. Anyone who knows anything about the setup can spot it a mile away.
Yes.
And not everyone does. Right. So, I've done less bitching about such things recently, mainly because I'm not on LinkedIn. I'd like to say, well, I've taken a more positive outlook, and I'm like, no, that's really not it. I spent a few years in a self-help cult. I'm still working my way out of bullshit positive outlooks. I like the real ones, like being some kind of a real optimist. But I was on a call, I don't know, 2-3 weeks ago with someone who, it's like she was a photographer. And so, it's not a LinkedIn marketer, right? So there's no like, hey, I've been steeped in this world for years and I decided to join a pod. But, just in a pod. And I don't think even called it that, right? Because that's kind of like an external term. They don't usually call that on the inside. Like cults. It's not what they call them when you're in it. It's just what other people call it. But described it to me. And she's like, oh, well, there's this cool thing. And like, I get some decent engagement. Cause I was like, it looks like your posts do pretty well. I mean, like it's good photos and stuff. And she's like, yeah, well, I'm in this, this group. It's a Facebook group, of course. And it's other photographers and like the main ones in England or something. So it's a group of photographers who are trying to like do better social marketing. And part of it is being in a fucking LinkedIn pod. And so they go and which is extremely detrimental. And I, luckily I didn't run my mouth before she then explained she was in a pod. Yeah. And so I was like, all right, cool. Let me frame this in a certain way where like, oh, like that's so low value. Because even the engagement you're getting, like, oh, I'm sorry, when is the other fucking photographer in England gonna like call you for a shot in butt? Like nothing. Like what are they gonna refer business? Like yes, engagement equals reach to a point. Right. But not because
a photographer in England, I don't think you're going to have people calling you up from England.
Yeah, and they're gonna see different places, or a photographer in New Jersey, and it's like cool. Like it's like I get the initial point was to kickstart your engagement, right? That's the whole pod thing. It's just to kickstart it, and then let the magic of organic reach on LinkedIn take over from there. But if the only people, right, that was always my measure, is if the only people that are engaging with your shit, or like more than 50% even, are in that pod. So if I see someone and I know her from self-help cult seminars back in the day, doing shit about podcasting and all this kind of thing, and it's like in the first 40 minutes, there's 50 some engagements on there, and not comments. Those come too, but I just like look at the likes because I intentionally then don't click it. I do not want to pause on it because I want to see more of that shit. And so I just try to like get by it. And then 2 days later, 4 days later, 5 days later, same post, and maybe there's 8 additional engagements on there. Like, I'm sorry, it's not working for you. So if you're paying, holy fuck, you're paying for nothing, right? It's just a bunch of people like licking your asshole in a circle, being like, oh, this is the best content I've ever had to engage with in my life. And literally, you're getting fewer additional likes organically than you would if you just posted the fucking thing and didn't do all that. Because LinkedIn has caught on. Obviously, the algorithms get updated, right? They catch on to like the certain kinds of behaviors, so at least she doesn't like group tag anymore. But then it's like, well, we try to tag people on individual comments. So I'll have 100 comments like with it. And it's just like, stop, like just put out something that someone gives a shit about. Maybe try a trick or two, to like help give yourself a kickstart. But if you can judge within a month, if it's not kickstarting it, then like you just do something different, or just like, buy a fucking ad and a placemat in a diner, right? Or do something else, because the engagement of the engagement pod isn't actually getting you additional.
And see, people see that as free, and it isn't, right? Because you put in the sweat equity, you put in the time and the effort, and then you have to stay to respond. And it's like, well, what are you really getting out of that? And I guess the question is, okay, there's self-regulation saying, I'm not going to do that stuff. I'm not going to engage with that stuff. But then how do we expect LinkedIn to your point on the algorithm, yes, it's going to get more sophisticated, but do we want it to be like Facebook, where they seem to censor things that don't align with whatever crazy thing Mark Zuckerberg's aligned himself with that day? And I don't know that I want that either. And so it's like a fine line. I think
it's already there, but
if you engage with the type of content you want to see, then you're going to see more of it. And that's a good thing. If you don't engage with the shit, you won't see the shit. But to the point on the, like the solopreneur, the person who's just trying to get by, like the easiest thing that you can do that's going to make a difference, so that I offer some sort of value and don't just sound like a cranky old lady, is just post every day. Like, post every day. That is the best. Other than gaming, that's what's going to point the algorithm in your favor. And try to post some video and write stuff, and avoid links if you can. And like, that's really it. Links to outside, because just like any social site, they want people to stay on their side. They don't want them to click off.
Of course.
So maybe write some article. I still call them pulse articles, even though they haven't been called that for a while. I actually found value in a lot of those, but write articles and post them natively to the platform. Like if you're a photographer and you find that couples getting married make these same mistakes all the time, write something about it and then share it. Like you can invest time in the platform. There's a reason people are putting all this effort in, and people are doing it ethically or authentically and getting value. So just like do those things, but do them consistently. That's the most important thing.
Yeah. And often the hardest for the solo and the small business, right? Because it's like, where do I find the time? What do I think to post of? And so all the fun other tips come in, like, you think of shit every second that you could post. You're just too close to it to realize that that's something you can post. Other people don't know it the way you do. And my always tip is like, for any action that it's hard to do because it's not a habit yet, is you put it in the fucking calendar. My calendar exists in actions, not just meetings. You know, if I have to do something in a certain day, then like I need to, like, it's going to take time. And so I need to block some time to do it. And so, put some early morning, whenever it is, whatever fucking time seems to be the best one for posting, I think is more relevant than like it's going to blow up on LinkedIn. Because since COVID, that if there was a good rule before, it's fucking dead and it stayed dead. Like there's no good times. But yeah, no, I think that consistent posting makes a lot of sense. Jotting down, I always recommend to people, like, start capturing notes. Right. Because like everyone I know is like, oh man, I should do a post about that. And it's gone.
I have a note on my iPhone that I literally just type that up when stuff pops in my head.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's like when I'm laying in bed, falling asleep, and I'm like, oh.
No, it's and I mean, I work in a fucking marketing agency, and people here have the same issues, right? Like, what do I what should I post about? Like, I never remember to, and blah, 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 blah. It's like all the same rules apply. And just try to do something good somewhat consistently. And if it's every day, excellent. If it's usually when we're doing client stuff, because I always end up doing like the LinkedIn revamp and LinkedIn trainings for clients who are doing that kind of shit. And it's just like, all right, cool. First of all, I'm going to use my profile as an example. And do not try to copy the style. Like, it's not going to work for you unless we're very similar. And I haven't met a client yet that's similar enough for that to work great. And so it's just like, so the point is you do your version, right? And lay the stuff out. And then for most people, in my experience, 3 times a week, and even some of this I roll back at this point, like 3 times a week is a really great goal. And a whole bunch of other rules, of course, like don't just do reshares of your company shit. Like nobody cares. Your company shit probably sucks. We're not going to do anything except use that as a distribution for our blogs. So like, let's not even, but yeah, it's like, well, and that's the other piece, right? So that we can hit into is, besides posting, then there's the presence and there's the profile. And so going into, I just mentioned it. So I have a distinct way in the business world anyway, a distinct way of presenting myself and of speaking and swearing. And I try to write like I speak, so it comes across the same way there. And some of that is intentional filter, because I know that eventually if you're going to interact with me, you're going to get to the part where you see how I am. So let's just get that out of the way now. Like, you can work with someone else here or someone else altogether. But a lot of people aren't familiar with writing how you speak. It's hard. It's not easy. We always are far more edited and formal and shit like that. But as far as the presence goes, like, I've gotten more business and engagements and like offline engagement, like reach outs and stuff like that around my profile than most anything I've posted, except for a few podcast episodes where it was like, Corporate Bro or Madison Butler or something. And like, you're going to get shit coming at you one way or the other. And not all great. I still get warnings every day, every time I try to post something on LinkedIn, to be respectful and professional because of some interactions post Madison every fucking day. I don't know when that's going to go away. But
that whole conspiracy, that is friggin' true. I'm sorry. I believe that 100% that there's balancing Black creators. Oh my God.
Oh yeah. Oh, for sure. Anyway, it's not a conspiracy. I'm not a fucking Black creator. I just got close enough to it and then dared to complain that someone was calling all queers perverts. And it's been 6 months and almost, and I'm and still getting warnings. And I'm
Wow.
sure there's some kind of impact on what I'm doing on LinkedIn. I just don't care as much anymore.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
But the profile, like people going to it, we have a client now we've had in for 6 months, almost since I first got here, who sent me an email and like total cold. And it was like, hey, like I saw your profile, really like what you wrote, like copied out bullets and then addressed the bullets from my about. And I'm like, okay, this is not a bullshit, because there's a lot of that, like, your profile's so interesting, and even by email, and I'm like, no, he bulleted. Oh, this beer thing is awesome. What kind of punk bands are you into? And like it's like cool, and then prospect, and then becomes a client, and now is referred. I mean, like 6 figures, and then some of business coming in because of my profile looking that way. Which again, mostly screen. Like mostly I do it to save people time and to save me time and like let people know in advance. I have an anti-selling approach, which apparently Renown likes. I anti-sold myself right into this fucking place. I was like, listen, I can do this job, but I'm going to do it this way. And here's like the 5 things you should watch out for. And if it's not cool, like I'm not going to come in here and I'm going to change in 3 months to, like fit into a culture. And like, that was the most appealing thing apparently of everything that I said. And so that's my style. Not everyone should do that, but they should do their style. And so I'm curious as like your perspective on styles, on, writing in your own style and like creating your presence, the value or lack thereof of creating your presence to be obviously like you and a match for how you are in real life and what that's yielded for you in terms of business.
Well, it's going to sound like I'm just trying to agree with you, but I'm really not. And that we're very similar in that way. Like I'm an acquired taste. I get it. I'm kind of quirky. I care a lot. I'm very good at what I do. And I know that I know my shit. Mm-hmm. And so I can come across really strong to people because I have a strong personality and I'm okay with that. If we don't fit, like that's cool. I don't want to work with you either. And not in a negative way, just like find someone who's a better fit. And so my profile is very honest. I talk about how I was fired from a job and why. I love to talk about the Oprah thing because it'll be on my tombstone that I was interviewed by Oprah twice. Like, who the hell wouldn't put that on there? Sorry. Or that I was in a documentary on Netflix. Like I want people to feel like they know me. But I also know like I'm a really good writer. And again, I'm not trying to sound conceited, but it's taken me like 15 years of writing professionally to feel not insecure enough to say that I know I'm a really good writer. Mm-hmm. And so, well, what the hell? I'm going to wear that with pride. And so it's really difficult. And I've helped earlier in the pandemic. I saw so many people in my network who were out of work. And I'm like, you know what? I've got the bandwidth. I lost a few clients. If anybody needs help rewriting their LinkedIn profile, let me know and I'll help you. And I had like a couple dozen people get back to me and it took me a while, but it was really cool. And so what I did was I asked them questions like, what makes you get up in the morning and feel excited about going to work? Like, why do you like this? Mm-hmm. What is it about you that you want people to know? And like, what's one quirky thing about you? Like, and I just like ask these questions and then from them, like the follow-up questions, where like, I'm getting to know you as a person. I'm not like helping you write something. And like that really seems to work and resonate well. And actually one of the people I helped sent me a message like a month later and he's like, I got a great job at Cartoon Network. And I know it's partially because of your LinkedIn profile. I cried. Like that was like the best feeling in the world. And I helped him and I'll give this tip too, and then I'll get back to the writing. On your experience, your professional experience, this is like the number one thing I would actually say about a profile. If someone scrolls that far, it's because they're actually super interested in you. Because like otherwise, I'm looking at your picture, looking at your bio or your headline and your summary or about. What is it called now? I still call it summary.
It's about now. I still call it summary.
Yeah. But if they keep scrolling, it's because they're interested. So like, give them something, right? And most people don't, or they copy and paste the bullets from the resume. Like, who cares? Mm-hmm. This is different. And so I encourage people from your past experience in particular, talk about how it prepared you for what you're doing now, or like the biggest takeaway. So like, after I graduated in grad school, I worked in a Catholic school and I made no money and I had to do everything myself. And I learned a hell of a lot about how to balance, whatever the case is, like share that because that doesn't only talk about your versatility and just show you as an emotionally mature person, but it helps people feel like they know you. Because if you're telling me that story, if you were sitting with me right now drinking a beer and I'm like, so what was with that job? That's what I want to see. And I'll tell you, like recruiters, it's harder and harder to stand out to them. That's the kind of stuff that they're going to remember. And I work with recruiters in my job, and I've worked with them for over a decade. I just happen to work a lot in the staffing and recruiting industry. And that's the kind of stuff that really like sticks. You need to stand out, because a lot of times your skills and background look just like everyone else's. So be you, right? And again, I mean, it's easier for me to say, but if someone's not going to want to work with you because of what you put there, again, then that's better for you in the long run, because I think we've all been stuck in places with toxic cultures. I mean, I can definitely attest to that. And that's a shitty feeling. And so if you're able to like put forth your real self, and so I would say, if you aren't sure how to translate your voice into writing, talk to someone have them ask you questions about work and record it, transcribe it, and then look and see what stands out. Like you could do a Zoom just like we are, record that, go to a free transcription site, and then like look at it and say, okay, well, what here is going to matter? And I'll offer, I don't have as much time as I used to now that I'm working full time, but like if you're writing something for your profile and you just want a set of eyes on it, I'm happy to take a look. I can't write it for you. I'm just too busy, but I'm happy to give a few pointers. Seriously. Yeah. Nice. I'm not selling anything, folks.
Yeah. There you go. There's no actual pitch coming anywhere.
No, I actually send that now with connection requests. Like someone posts something good, I'm like, oh my God, I love this post, X, Y, and Z. Let's connect. No pitch forthcoming. Smiley face. Like, it's kind of sad, but that's what we have to do nowadays, apparently.
Yes. And I don't mean no pitch, but I do want to talk to you about how I can add value.
Yes.
I'm just not calling it a pitch now. So, all right, cool. So the last question on the show is not really a question. So I just get to serve it up to you, to your big takeaway that you want to leave people with, a message, a promo, whatever that thing is that you want to leave the viewers and listeners with right after you tell them where to find you.
Sure. I would say the best place to find me is on LinkedIn. I'm on Twitter, but it's private because I go off on topics that no one's interested in, like Disney and the Tampa Bay Rays, who nobody roots for. So LinkedIn, and it's there's a lot of Diana Mitchell. So it's linkedin.com/in/Diana Mitchell 716, and connect with me. Even if you pitch me, I'm not gonna like, you're good. And please do. And if you have a question about your profile, or you just want someone to take a look at it, I'm happy to do that for you, really, truly. And especially if you're looking for work right now, if you're looking for work right now, I'll help you with your profile. And the biggest takeaway I would say is, don't worry so much about what everyone else is doing. Think about who it is that you're trying to reach. And then think about what you truly like to click on or read, and then do some of that, and you'll be fine.
Cool. Short, sweet, simple, yet poignant. Excellent. Well, thank you for coming on the show, Diana, and exposing me to another new beer and a new kind of beer, really, because I gotta say, I probably was not going to get to a gluten-free one at any point in this rotation on my own. So, regardless of any sensitivities I might have. But yeah, this was good. Conversation was great, as expected. And thanks for coming on.
Oh, thanks for having me, Palm.
Yeah. Talk to you soon.
All right. Take care.
Brews BizDev is hosted by Paul Greiner and produced by Renown Creative. Check us out at renownCreative.com. Are you fucking kidding me?